So, welcome to our roundtable where we talk about coaching and how to be a better coach. And I'm Lynn Christian, the founder of Soul Salt. You can see Shannon on the screen. She runs the back end of Soul Salt, and together we make up the home team. And our guest today, Lisa, is someone that I would have in front of any audience that I'm ever in charge of because of her soul, because of her intelligence, because of her experience. And she's a former corporate executive, not just a former corporate executive, but in the fintech Fortune 500 arena. And she is celebrated for being a champion of minority leaders. And so I can't think of somebody better to talk to us today about how to use transformational leadership in coaching. So Lisa, I don't want to take any more valuable time. You have so much to share, and I'm just going to turn the time over to you. And if there's something I've missed that you feel like the audience should know about you that I didn't announce, would you share that now and then just jump into sharing with us today what you've prepared?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, Lynn, for the opportunity. I'm always honored, and I always say yes when Lynn asks. It's a blessing to meet great people, and I think great leaders should know other great leaders, so that we support and connect and help each other. So that's why I'm here today. There isn't anything else that you need to know about me, really, other than love is my highest value. I will share that, and that matters when you think about your leadership and your coaching. What you value and really who you are should come into your work. And so that's how I try to approach everything that I do, to have the most loving possible response to what I'm experiencing, to say things in the most loving way that I possibly can, and to really be a reflection of light and love. We need that in today's present time more than ever. So that's probably the most important thing to know about me. So I have some content, some slides prepared that we'll walk through. I hope today that this will be an interactive discussion. So it doesn't have to be formal. Jump in, ask questions, share your perspective, because really that's the point of this, for us all to learn and grow together. So I'm going to share my screen, which I know works because we tested it out just a couple of minutes ago. So we're talking about becoming a transformational coach. That really is the topic for today. And we'll go through that in a series of steps. We'll first just talk about the case for transformational coaching and transformational leadership, and talk about kind of two different styles of leadership that are prevalent, and kind of compare and contrast them, so that we have a sense of, what will work best and when. And then the part that I'm looking forward to is to have an opportunity to do some coaching in real time that's, unscripted, and just, have a volunteer to bring a topic forward, and I'll go through kind of the transformational coaching model, and we'll see how that goes. And then we'll talk about what's next, what happens after today. So we are living in what can be described as a VUCA world. It is increasingly much more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous than it has ever been. Things are changing at a rapid pace. There's multiple levels of interconnectedness. We're much more global now, et cetera. And there is tremendous uncertainty, confusion, ambiguity in the world. And you don't even have to take my word for it. All you have to do is look at the headlines. We're ending diversity. We're taking down people's accomplishments as if they didn't exist. There are world wars happening in the world, in Ukraine, in Gaza. There's economic news about potential recession, and all of those things really speak to the fact that the pace of change is accelerating and making uncertainty a constant. In the past, things changed at a much slower pace. Changes were periodic and could be somewhat anticipated. Today, disruption is more of the norm. And tomorrow, the future, change will really be kind of a permanent fixture that we have to get accustomed to. And that's why we need something different than what we are experiencing today from leadership. It has to be a new way forward. The way we lead must evolve to meet the moment, the era, the time that we're in. The old ways of doing things won't work anymore. In my coaching practice, I see the impact of the pace of change, the impact of the type of changes and the decisions that are being made on us as leaders, and how it affects our ability to grow our organizations, how it affects our ability to show up in the way that we want to as leaders, because we're so bogged down. And especially for us as coaches, because we have to hold space for others. And so, how do we ourselves embody the type of leadership and transformation that is needed, or that our clients are looking for from us, if we don't have a system, a process, a way that we ourselves are transforming personally so that we can then share that with others? This world, this volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous world demands a new style of leadership. It requires it. It is a necessity. We must have it if we are to grow and thrive as the world keeps changing and evolving. There are two primary approaches that we can think about from a leadership perspective. One is the traditional way. The traditional approach to leadership, and even to coaching in some sense, is much about kind of top down. If I am the leader, I'm the one who's supposed to have the knowledge, who sets the strategy, who pushes information down, and others follow. But with the complexity that we're experiencing in the world, with the pace that things change, we don't have time to wait for some person at the top or a small group of leaders at the top who traditionally were very homogeneous, looked the same, had similar backgrounds, kind of thought similarly. We don't have time to wait for that small group of people to tell us what needs to happen, to tell us how to handle things. This time requires more decentralized leadership, where power is spread out and distributed throughout organizations, and people are empowered to use their expertise to make decisions at all levels of the organization. We must be much more agile than one can be when you're in a traditional form of leadership. That traditional approach works okay. In fact, it can work very well when you have stable environments where the processes of the type of work that's happening is predictable. There are some times when you don't want someone to be overly creative in the work that they're doing, when there are rules and procedures, when when there's legality, when someone's health is at stake. We don't want our doctors to go rogue and decide in real time what they think is a good solution for us. We want them to have study, to have a process that they follow, and to follow certain guidelines. That's when a traditional approach works, but that is not the majority of the world that we exist in today. Traditional leadership is about preserving the status quo largely. It's about keeping the people who have been in power, and it is therefore resistant to change. And decisions are made much more slowly because everything has to be sent to the top, and then we have to wait for it to come back down. It is very bureaucratic in its approach. Whereas in a transformational environment where decisions are decentralized, where leaders are empowered and have confidence in their own abilities and are given the resources that they need to do their jobs, decisions can be made much more quickly. It supports having diverse teams and diverse styles, because you need that, because the pace of change and the type of change requires different skill sets, different ways of thinking, different experiences. And that's why transformational leadership is so important. In a traditional environment, it's much more reactive. People aren't anticipating and planning ahead because, remember, they're trying to maintain the status quo and follow the rules and guidelines that have been set by a small group of people at the top of the house. So innovation they're not really innovating. They're small, maybe incremental changes that take a long time, as opposed to making leaps and bounds by anticipating what's going to happen in the market or in the environment. Leaders are not encouraged to make independent decisions in a traditional environment. We wait for the folks at the top to tell us what happens, as opposed to people collaborating, using their collective wisdom and experiences to make the best decision for the organization. So if you want to foster innovation, if you want to be adaptable and have teams that are agile, if you want to be able to grow at the pace that you need to succeed in this global market, it requires a different style of leadership. And now more than ever before, we need coaches and leaders who are operating from the transformational rather than the traditional perspective of leading. That means that we accelerate development. As coaches, we're helping our clients to be able to adapt to the pace of change and to get comfortable, frankly, with being uncomfortable most of the time and learning to thrive within it. That's what this moment, this time that we're living in demands. We're not ever going back to what worked in the past. The world has moved so far beyond that. Even though, dare I say, there are some people who would like to take us backwards to a time when there were just a few select people at the very top who made all of the decisions and set the culture and environment for the rest of us. That's really not our world anymore. So I want to pause right here for a moment and just get your thoughts, your perspective on this. Are you seeing this in the spaces that you're in? Are you seeing the volatility? What are you experiencing as it relates to the demand for more transformational leadership?
I see a lot of like pushback. I mean, from where I sit, I see a lot of pushback around transformational leadership. I get frustrated because I am definitely much more of the transformational style and creative than the traditional kind of autocratic style of leadership. And the pushback is frustrating because when you know the world doesn't operate in the way that it used to, and where we're headed is not where we used to be, and people want to keep being where they used to be, but then the change is happening all around them, it just is very frustrating to continuously have to say, but this is not going to work forever. So like you can, or it will, but y'all not going to be running no business if you're going to do that. So, that is kind of where, how it works for me in my environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that.
Sharice, thank you for sharing that. I see it as well. In our state, we have had more legislation this year focused on the top-down leadership and taking away the voices, especially in my world, of the LGBTQ plus demographic. And I come back to what you said at the beginning, Lisa, where you said, it's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. And during those times, we could become fear-based, and we need that new leadership that you're bringing to us. It's got to be a non-negotiable. Like each of us have to what I'm getting is we do need that transformational mindset maybe. And we have to pull ourselves up from our bootstraps and our socks every morning and say, how will I choose? How will I continue to have a mindset of these things on your slide before, where we're innovative and we're proactive and we don't just let somebody else think for us. I just feel like we're hitting another critical mass point where we've got to unite our voices and remind us that there is a better way to lead. So I feel like this is one of the most timely subjects we've ever hit upon. And thank you for bringing it in the vein that you're bringing it in. You're bringing it in leadership and love and using real words that actually mean something. And that if we grab onto those and we start leading in that direction, can change everything.
Yeah, thank you, Sharice and Lynn, for your perspectives. It's so true. We really, it's imperative, right? Dare I say, our survival depends on our ability now to have an open mindset, one that is growth driven, one that has the ability to hold more than one truth at the same time and make decisions based on multiple truths. That's the complexity that we're facing that demands a different style of leadership, even as Cherie said, in the face of pushback, because this is not easy. It's not easy to be open to all of the change that is happening around you without becoming fearful, without worrying about how you'll fit in to where the world is moving. And that's the challenge that we often face, right? As people have a personal fear-based reaction to change. What will this mean for me if suddenly someone else is in charge? What does it mean if I allow someone who has a different identity than mine to be the person who's leading? What will that mean for me? As we look at our country in particular, and we see what has been described as the browning of America, we have more people of color and biracial, all sorts of ethnicities, which is part of the beauty of this country that we live in. But for some people, that's threatening because the world suddenly doesn't look the way they are used to it looking. And so there's this desire that comes up to suppress anything that is deemed different, as opposed to taking the loving approach, which recognizes that we're all connected. Transformational leadership requires of us new ways of being, seeing, saying, and doing. And it really, though, starts with being who we are, our identity, what we value is the beginning. So often leaders want to jump to the doing, right? We're rewarded for the results that we deliver. And so we think about doing first. But I would submit to you that if we start with the being, everything else becomes easier. When you are really clear about who you are and what you value and the value that you deliver, decision-making becomes much more easy, even in complex situations, because you make the decision that aligns with what you value, that keeps you consistent to who you say you are. Kate Ebner is the CEO of the Nebo Company and the creator of the transformational framework that I'll share with you today. And she said transformational leaders have the ability to see beyond current realities. That vision is so important for transformational leaders, because if they can look ahead, then you have the opportunity to think about things in new and different ways. And that's what allows transformational leaders to solve problems that others don't even know exist or can't see coming, to create new possibilities and relationships and outcomes as a result. Transformational leaders connect people, ideas, things together to create a better view and vision of the future, even amid present realities. And so those are the four components of the transformational leadership and, dare I say, coaching framework: be, see, say, and do. And we're going to start with being first. Being is all about how we show up. Transformational coaches and leaders are present, empathetic, resilient, courageous, and curious. And curiosity is so important, especially when things are changing, to ask the big important questions, to have a desire to learn and understand as opposed to being fixed in our perspectives. Starting from the place of who you are, who you want the world to see when they see you, the true you, that authenticity, being who you are. And from that place, determining how you show up so that you can be present and empathetic and resilient and all of the things that go along with how you show up. Seeing, of course, is about our perception. It's how we notice things. And transformational coaches and leaders notice things that others might miss because we're so grounded and present. We can see things differently. We first see ourselves. Then we can see others for who they are. We can envision and see the context of things and the systems that are at play so that we can then have a vision for the future and what's possible based on what we see in ourselves, others, and the context in which we are living and working. From there, then, we speak, we communicate. How we communicate is the same part. When you come from who you are, being present, resilient, and courageous, and you're noticing things around you and you have a vision for the future, then you can communicate it. Effective communication is so important. That communication must be strategic, dare I say inspirational, because we want to use what we see, our transformation abilities, to draw in other transformational leaders and coaches so that we get an exponential result for our collective efforts. That communication has to be clear, to go direct to the point, that is inclusive and is relevant, dare I say, for the time, the space in which we're operating. And then finally, we get to the doing. That is the last part. If you get clear about who you are, what you value, the values that you deliver, and you are courageous and resilient, and you start to notice people and things and systems in the world around you and communicate it in a clear and inspirational way, then the people who are listening will know what actions to take. That's the last part of the model, is how we act. And moving forward in the direction that most aligns with what's needed in the moment. That requires that we connect with others, that we're conducting and making sure that things happen in the order and the process that needs to happen so that we get the most effective results, that we're empowering others. We don't always have to be the one to do. We can trust others and their leadership. And it means being flexible, agile, willing to adapt, because as you get new information, as things change, which they do often, we then make different decisions about what the appropriate result is that we want and the actions to take to achieve it. That's the transformational leadership framework. Being, seeing, saying, and doing. And that's what's required in this moment, that presence and mindset, being aware of what's happening around us and being willing to say something about it and take action as well. So I think this is also a good stopping point. What questions, comments do you have about the framework for transformational coaching and leadership?
Gosh, I think this last one's most relevant right now, of being open and honest and saying what we're seeing. We have to, I'm thinking, I won't name names, I'm thinking of something that was on social media, but also in magazines, of a recent speech that was given in Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and a woman stand behind with a sign that said, "This is not normal." I feel like there is so much that transformational leaders need to be willing to say today. And so I'm glad the framework sort of ends on that. We've got to be it first, then do and see it. But all of that is not if we don't say something. And you know, saying and doing, I love that they're at the bottom, because that's really where the pavement and the tire hit together, and we got to go somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And that saying and doing must be, though, rooted in who we are. and how we show up in the world. What I'm also noticing is that people, either they have changed, if they have genuinely changed what they value, or they're just shifting to go along with the wave that's happening in this moment. Because there are people that I thought I understood who they were and what mattered to them, but now I'm seeing behavior that doesn't align with who they said they were. And that's part of what creates distrust. And it's part of the uncertainty that people experience. If you're not consistent, if what you're saying doesn't align with what I see you do, if who you've communicated that you are doesn't match what I notice when I see you, now I'm unsure. My confidence in you as a leader will waver, or I flat out won't follow you because there's this inconsistency.
That brings up something for me that I'm really kind of curious about. I'm really glad you brought this in. So when you were asking the first question, the way I I was relating to everything was like, oh, this really explains to me why I'm having some internal struggles, because I'm trying to bring traditional, what I'm familiar with, forward with me, even though my soul is like tradition, I want to do this transformational. I love the word transformational, like it's just so inspiring. And I haven't known the difference really within my being, right? Like I guess I could say I have, but it's just not come forward for me in a way that I can go, oh, this is identifiable. Okay, now I can understand this a little better. So that when you were saying, we've got to be on board mentally with this, or we have to be on board with this as a transformational coach, we need to really understand this. And then going further into how this framework works, that's also really powerful for me. And yet you then brought up, now you don't know, like you've seen some people that it's a little bit confusing what they're saying, what they're doing, that kind of thing. So this may connect and it may not, but in this shifting of the way this wave of the way things are really does affect people, I'm changing. So there's going to be a little bit of maybe uncertainty. Maybe people will view me the way that you just described. Did you really change? What are you doing? Are you just on board with something? Has this like grabbed you and dragged you along? Did you get on that train? Like where, and part of me is kind of like, I'm still figuring it out. Well, like I kind of know, but I kind of don't. So I guess I'm asking a question in a way. It's like really understanding who I am and who the being is so important. And I'm so glad that the doing is at the end, because I really am more of a action oriented, raised in the whole traditional do, get it done kind of thing. And I don't know, this whole thing's super valuable to me. So do you have anything to say in response to what I kind of dropped out there? Because I don't know that I have a specific question, but I did want to bring it in.
Yeah, I think you have a very specific question. Let me play back what I believe I heard you say to make sure that I didn't misunderstand. What I hear you saying is, I have been somewhat rooted in tradition, but I'm recognizing a need to make a shift, and I want to be more transformational. But I'm still figuring out who I am in this season. And I wonder, Lisa, if as I figure it out and get really clear about who I am and how I want to show up now, will that cause others to be a little bit unsure about me? Will they wonder if this change is real, and how will this then affect the people around me as I navigate who I'm becoming?
Mm-hmm.
Did I get that right?
You did hear that correctly. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I want to thank you for seeing that and bringing it to the conversation. We are evolving. least we should be, who I am today is not the same person that I was a year ago, 5 years ago. I'm evolving. My coaching practice has evolved from where I started and what my intention was when I set out. We get to grow and evolve. The thing, though, that hasn't changed are my values. My values have been constant for as long as I had a clear understanding of what my values were. So you get to change, you get to grow, you get to evolve and become the best and highest version of yourself. As you get more information, as you learn and grow, you're going to be different. And that's okay. What causes the distrust and conflict is when you tell me that you value, let's say, collaboration. We'll just pick a random one. But yet you don't include me when you're making decisions. You keep making them on your own.
That makes sense. Yes, thank you for
That's
that.
where the disconnect comes. And I think, dare I call out our beautiful friend Lynn, can probably speak to this evolving and people becoming who they really are better than most because it's been their life.
Thank you, Lisa. That has been my journey of keep peeling back layers and asking who I am and finding that I'm not who I thought I was when I was born or the way I was raised to even see myself. So yes. Yeah. Been a
Yeah.
journey. Yeah.
Yeah, so often, and a big part of my journey has been shedding the shoulds, what people told me I should be based on their agenda, not mine, what I should be, how I should show up, what I'm capable of having by their estimation of me.
Right. And I think we all, I think this is a universal journey for those who are willing and evolving, and probably those who are candidates for transformational leadership. How do you feel about that, Lisa?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. I love that. It's so true. It is the journey, and people's whenever you have a feeling of you should or you ought, just know that that is coming from someone else's agenda, not your own. And question it. Be curious. Why should I? Is it even true? Is that the capital T truth? Should I do this? Because some people would have told me I should have stayed in corporate America. Why would you leave a big cushy corporate job where you're making lots of money and you have all this power? So they thought, to do what? And at the time, I didn't even know what I was going to do. That seemed probably crazy to some people. And yet I knew in here, my heart said, it's time for you to do something else. This doesn't align with what you value. I was not excited about making a really big corporation even bigger. That doesn't align. It did not align any longer with what had meaning and purpose for me. But being a coach, helping others grow, helping people live bigger and more consistently with who they are, that is perfect alignment for me. It just flows from a place that gives me a sense of purpose and meaning in life. Now, that was in there all along. It was just misdirected, if you will. So now I'm reclaiming those gifts and talents for helping things grow, for having a vision for what's possible. And instead of applying that to a corporation, I'm now applying that to people. So that's an evolution, but still aligned with values. Is that helpful? Very good. Thank you for bringing that forward. Sharice, any questions, comments, concerns at this point?
No, just thinking about all of the things that we have talked about in my like all of my work that I'm doing in my current role and where it serves me in my future and how it serves me. And I went back to something you said to me the other day, and it really made so much sense. I've been saying it all week, by the way, is this thing about I have to do this for 18 months instead of like, I get to do this for 18 months while I create a life for my family and I transition out of it. So I'm just thinking about all the things.
Yeah. Instead of what you have to do, what you should do, well, here's a crazy question. What do you want to do? What
Right.
is your deepest desire? What is it that you long for? That's a better question. And like you said, what do I get to do? Like, I get to be a coach. I get to stand here today in front of you guys and share something that's deeply personal and meaningful to me. I get to do this. I don't have to. Nobody told me I should. I get to. And in fact, some people probably would have said, I'm not the right person to do this for whatever their reasons might be. And yet I get to do this. So, yeah, let's think about that. Here's what it really means to be a transformational coach. And I love this image because it really speaks to what we're talking about. The world can seem a little dark and scary. There's lots of questions and uncertainty. But as transformational leaders and coaches, we get to show people the light. We get to help them discover the path forward for themselves that's not based on our agenda, but it's based on what they most desire. We become the people who help bring clarity in the midst of what is absolutely chaotic. Just by showing up and being our authentic selves, first of all, we give other people permission to do the same. By asking powerful questions, by what we see and what we notice and what we're able to articulate, we can illuminate for others a path forward through the myriad questions that exist. And to know that you don't have to have all the answers to move forward. Sometimes we have to just live with and sit with a question or multiple questions until the answer shows up. But we don't remain stuck or sit immobile while we're waiting. We take the information that we have, we take what we do know, what we are sure of, and move in the direction of our values, in the direction of our goals, in the direction of the future that we see. And that need for people who can help bring that clarity and illuminate for others a clear path forward, that has never been more needed than today. People need answers in times of stress and distress and chaos. People are looking for someone who is sure-footed, stable, that has a plan. We get to be that for others. And there's benefits for us as coaches, right? This allows us to build that deep level of trust with our clients, to create the type of relationships that really last beyond the coaching journey itself. And then the beauty too is we get to grow right alongside our clients. And for me, I view my work as a coach as an opportunity for me to help bring to the present the future that I want to see. For those who are leaders that aren't in the coaching space, right, that maybe are working for others, right, this is an opportunity to be able to effectively navigate all the changes and the complexity that is going to continue to happen and even accelerate, and build an environment where you have high-performing teams who are change agile, where people are empowered to do their best work and still achieve results. That's the beauty and the benefit of having a transformational mindset where you see change as an opportunity and not a problem or something that needs to be resisted. And that's what the world is lacking. Great leadership is a gift. And there's a gap that needs to be filled today for great transformational leaders who are purpose-driven, value-led, inclusive. It's so needed today.
Lisa, could you talk a bit about, as I've taken my notes, both digitally and handwritten, because that's how I am, that's how I process. One of the things that I wrote down in my journal was how at the beginning you said that this change is accelerating. Can you talk a bit about the efficacy of transformational leadership and transformational coaching in terms of speed? Can it keep up? Can transformational coaching and leadership keep up with this accelerated uncertainty?
Absolutely. In fact, I think it's the only thing that can keep up, because the beauty of being a transformational coach, right? And even the framework of being, seeing, saying, and doing is that applies in any situation, any circumstance. And if as we're moving down a certain path and new information presents itself, this is where you lean into your ability to see. What are you noticing? Oh, I see this changing. How will that affect? Let me say something about that. Here's what we need to do now. That is why transformational coaching and leadership is so important, because things are changing rapidly. The onus now on us as transformational leaders and coaches is to be continuous learners and observers and to remain curious. It's having that growth mindset that is always open to new information and ideas. And we take that and put it back out into the world to help leaders evolve. And the other thing that transformational coaching does, right, is we don't have to have, this is beauty, we don't have to have all the answers. In fact, we don't need any of the answers. We just need the right questions.
Yes, and so in the facilitative, like rather than going top down, I like where you started with the top down and the traditional leadership. Almost reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy, but top down, in the moment, then we can, and I remember the image you had, it's more like a thought map and interconnectedness. We can ask questions, be facilitative, co-create in the moment, and then innovate off of that.
Yes.
Rather than having to go through rules and hoops and other sorts of, what would I say, policies and change of command and gestalt.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we pull others in, right? Because we can't know everything, right? So you pull who else do I know? Like that's a great question to ask, right? Who's in my network? Who do I know that can help me answer this question? Transformational leaders connect, right? We put a couple great people in a room together and watch the magic happen. Yeah, that traditional approach doesn't work, because if we're all dependent on the person at the top or a few people at the top to tell us what to do, first of all, the telephone effect happens, right? By the time it works its way down through the organization to me, the message is probably not the same as what it started out as. And by the time it works its way down, the world has changed. And so we need a new decision. But we need to remain agile. And that's where having empowered leaders all throughout the organization at every level makes a difference. And so there's a willingness in a transformational approach to make a small incremental step that's right now. Go ahead, Cherise.
I was just thinking about, because the transformational is, like I said, that's where I lean, but there are some elements of traditional, which I wouldn't even say traditional, but where I would say like the grippy model is still something that's important, like goal, like people need to know what they're working towards. They need to know what their role in it is. There needs to be some interpersonal, connection there. And so there's still those elements, but the difference in traditional and transformational is we're not stuck in just those places, right? Like we can shift, and we can, because that's what's going to have to happen if we're going to collaborate. Responsibilities do shift, and it's not just one person's responsible for this or in charge of this. I heard a leader the other day, and they didn't even have to tell me what kind of leader they are, because I could tell by the language that they use. They said, I'm in charge of, I control, and I was like, oh God. I mean, they all of the words he used freaked me out. I was like, I don't want to work for you. But I was like, oh, because we are in a place, in an organization who it generally just has been so traditional, and people stay for a very long time. And that's what kind of I deal with. I feel like I'm in a safe space. People stay for a long time in organizations. And sometimes that is not the best thing. I think people look at the metric of retention and forget that when people don't go anywhere else, that they don't learn any, and they don't reach out for learning opportunities, they're not learning anything, and they stay in that traditional place.
Yeah, and you took us right there, right? This transformational leadership and having leaders who are inclusive and change agile is good for business too. The studies, the data supports it, that when you have transformational coaches and you have transformational leaders in your organization, that employee satisfaction is 87% higher. People are much more engaged. That revenue increases year over year when you have a transformational and inclusive leadership model. Turnover is reduced, and we're much more innovative. Naturally, you're going to be more innovative because you have people who are empowered to try new things, to bring new ideas to the table without having to wait for the message from on high to come. So it's not just a feel good, it's not just theory. The results prove it. The International Coaching Federation, McKinsey, and others have actually studied it, and this is what they have found. So if you want to have an organization that's growing and thriving, that's innovative, where people are engaged and your revenue is growing, you need transformational leaders. And the best way to help leaders become more transformational and to get clear on their being, seeing, saying, and doing is to put them with a transformational coach.
Lisa, sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
Well, I was going to say, and maybe you're going to cover it right now. Maybe I'm giving you the segue. How would you define, because we have Asia and Sharni, who are part of our Soul Salt coaching team here. You have Cherise, you're a coach. We're showing up here, learning from our peer. How would you define the transformational coach? Who are they? What do we aspire to be? Is that where you're going?
Oh my goodness. You've jumped ahead. And so we're going to go there. So we're going to do a little practice, but we'll come back to that. But I'm going to tell you, where did it go? Hang on. User error. I have it in here. Yes, I talked about what
it's not user error if you can just find it within the next minute.
Find it. Right. Well, you know what? How about I just tell you? See, it takes us back. Yeah, it really takes us back to this though, too. This is the true definition, right? When you think about what it means for us to be transformational coaches. What does that mean? It means that we are, if we think about the framework of being, seeing, saying, doing, that we first get really grounded in who we are, like clear on our being. That's number one. And that is what's necessary so that then we can help others to see their way through this darkness and chaos that we have. That's what it really is to be a transformational coach. It means that we have to go through our own journey of transformation to understand the steps in the process so that we can then help others to do it. It means that in our coaching sessions, whether we're doing group coaching or one-on-one, that we are being intentional about asking questions in each of those zones. Asking, being questions, seeing, saying, and doing questions. And that's what we're going to, well, we have a very short time. We've got a few minutes. We'll do a mini coaching session and just model this out really quickly. How about that?
Thank you.
All right, so what I am going to do here is, Lynn, I'm going to ask you to be our volunteer.
Okay.
And we're going to quickly demonstrate what it looks like to, as a coach, to be transformational, asking those, being, seeing, saying, doing questions. Just notice if you see that. And we haven't practiced, so we'll get to see what comes up here as we attempt this.
Okay.
So what would you like to discuss, Lynn?
I'm going to discuss the transformation I'm going through so that I coach a different demographic in 2026 than I currently am.
Okay, so you want to coach a different demographic. Why is this important for you right now?
I have been challenged, and I do listen to challenges. And to be able to make, I feel like I need to make a stronger impact. And in this new demographic, the impact will be at a ×10 level.
More impactful. Okay. So when you think about who you are, Lynn, and what you most value, how will your actions toward this new demographic align with who you are and what you value?
That is something I'm going to discover because my coach said that I am underplaying my hand if I don't make this move. And I'm not sure because I've been in love with the demographic I've been working with. So I am willing to innovate and test it. And I think that's how I could answer that question. Is that an okay answer?
Yes, that is a perfect answer. You're going to test it out because you're not sure right now. Even though you're not totally clear and you're going to test this out, if you look ahead into the future, what do you see for yourself and your coaching practice by being willing to step out and try this?
I see myself actually making a bigger impact. And I see the coaching staff too that are represented here being able to make a bigger impact as well.
Make a bigger impact. And when you're able to make a bigger impact, how will that change you?
I feel like, and I got it this morning during meditation, I will be more wholly myself with an H because I will be more whole with a W in what I'm doing on the next level.
Yeah, being more whole in what you're doing. What's the first step that you can take?
I am taking those, so I'm going to say a next step if I can, because
okay, yes, the next step.
The next step today is checking in with my team to see if what I sent them yesterday in terms of plotting it out as a journey for the client made sense to them. So double checking back.
Double checking back. And what other conversations other than, checking back with your team, do you feel like it's time for you to have?
I am having next level conversations and Shannon setting them up, continually looking for that next person that will put us in front of that new demographic. So that's an active thing and a daily question in my mind. Yes. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah. And by when? When are
By
you?
when?
By
Well,
when?
at least by February 2026, the transition will have been made. Although we are definitely, see, yeah, there we go. Sharice, we lost her. We are definitely in process. So new things on the horizon, at least, if not end of April, at least by 1st of June.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Lynn, for being the test case in this rapid fire.
Well, thank you.
I'm gonna
Thank you for asking. I've got
ask
free
you,
coaching from you. Thank you.
Asia, or sure, did you notice, and Charney, great to see you here. What did you notice? Did you hear or notice elements of the model come in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I did. The phrase that keeps rolling through my head is when you said, coaches don't need the answers, we need the right questions. So something as simple as when is like, yeah, that was like, oh, that's a good question.
Just where?
Asia has a new tool in her kit now. That's a good one.
Like, well, when? Yeah, most of this is going to be applied to self, because to be a transformational coach, I need to know myself, right? And my values, and I can lead people on that journey even more confidently, for sure. So I did notice the the tapping into Lynn's being, like you brought that forward. You know, who are you being in this
Mhm.
next phase? What are you seeing in yourself? And even in your application of, like, what are your, you know, even before you get to the doing, what are you seeing that needs to be done? And the doing and saying seem to kind of work together, at least in her replies, or their replies. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, right. And there's so many questions you can ask in the moment, and part of it is just trusting yourself that the right question will be there and available for
Mhm.
you. We didn't practice or prepare any of this, and so I just asked what came to me in the moment, and you will too, and having that confidence in yourself, because some of these will be questions that you're asking of yourself as you transform and become the best version of yourself in any season. And that will continue to evolve as you grow, and it'll be available. So I know we are a few minutes over time, so I'm simply going to share as the final thing. First of all, thank you for allowing me to do this today and to share this with you. I want to just offer this resource for you that is that I've put together, that is a workbook that you can work through for yourself, or that you can share with your clients to work through. It starts with an assessment of your style to see, how transformational of a leader are you? And then from there takes you through the be, see, say, and do to explain it, and have some questions that you can ask of yourself, and then create a plan for how you can become more of a transformational leader and coach based on the areas where you find opportunities. So maybe the work is on being, or maybe you need more work on saying, but that will become clear. And you can download that. It's available on my website, ascentim.com /transformational. Let's continue the conversation and stay connected. I love to connect with people and to learn from others. So if we aren't already connected on LinkedIn or Instagram, on LinkedIn, I'm Lisa L. Baker, or at Ascentim on Instagram. I would love to connect and just continue the discussion, because I'm learning and growing and becoming a more transformational leader and coach myself. And so learning from you, and I'd love to just hear if you download the resource, what you get from it. Are there things that you would like to see in there that aren't? And just to help me be better as a transformational leader. I would appreciate that.
Thank you, Lisa. It's always enriching and inspiring. And I really appreciate you offering this resource. And so I'm sure Sharni and Asia Shannon's already getting it downloaded for us. We want to see the tool, we want to experience it. And your presence is magnified. Every time I hear you, it seems like the message gets bigger and stronger. So thank you.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. It means the world coming from you.
Thank you. Thank you. Sharni, Asia, thank you for joining us. Sharni, you can catch on to the beginning of it. Really appreciate that. And again, Lisa, please take care. And I know this is not the last time we'll be talking.
Correct. See y'all soon.
Good night.
Bye.
Goodbye.